So this is a video of an Indian motorcycle. Now I know what you might be thinking. It must be big, it must be heavy, it must be meant for the highways only. But here's the thing. This is the Indian FTR 1200. Now we have it with us for today and we're going to find out whether it's worth your money.
But really, is this actually all that different, or is this just a lazy person dressed in a jumpsuit? Well, for starters, the genes of the Indian FTR 1200S at least is definitely sporty. It is based on the championship-winning Indian FTR 750 race bike that has been making its competitors, well, eat dirt. The FTR 1200S adapts not only the styling but also crucial design elements from the race bike, like the frame and the swing arm, and has taken that extreme setup and made it into a motorcycle that can be ridden on the road as well. So much so that this one can turn right too. Okay, jokes aside, the Indian FTR 1200S gets a lot of hardware that is hiding under its skin in order to make it live up to the expectations. For example, you see that fuel tank? Well, that's not exactly a fuel tank, as it is an airbox like you would see on a flat track race bike. The fuel tank instead extends to under the seat for better mass centralization. Then it gets a host of electronic features too, which includes things like ABS and wheelie mitigation control. But then there's also the 6-axis IMU, which allows for lean sensitive traction control system. Now that is proper sporty stuff. And as for the riding experience, well, it does not disappoint there either.
Now, as is the case with most Indian motorcycles, the highlight of this one too is the engine on board. Now this one is not all about the low end grunt, but it's all about the mid-range punch.
Powering the Indian FTR 1200S is a 1203cc V twin engine that makes mouth-watering 120 Nm of torque that peaks in at 6000 RPM. Now I know that doesn't sound too high, but for Indian motorcycles, that's the moon. And simply put, the engine is butter smooth and is as refined as ever. However, there are minor vibrations that do creep in through the seat to the rider, but then it's subtle enough that you wouldn't really mind. What I absolutely loved was the throttle sensitivity, which has superb on-off transitions at low speeds, and the power is well spread across the RPM range. No matter which gear you are in, you always have enough power to pull through without feeling the need to downshift. And in case you get into the mood for relaxed riding, you can do that too, as the engine can cruise all day at highway speeds. So far so good. But here's where the FTR 1200S really starts to pull away from the other Indian motorcycles and becomes a rebel in its family that does not live up to the family traditions. And that starts with the riding position. It is a great mix of relaxed and sporty, and the position is comfortable enough for long distance journeys and yet gives the rider a feeling of being on top of the situation. Look closer and you will notice the Dunlop tires, which look at you with wide eyes asking for an off-road adventure. The foot pegs too are off-roady, and the low set wide handlebar promises good leverage when the going gets tough. But given the limited time we had with the motorcycle, off-roading remains a story to be found for another day. Also, let's be honest, it is tarmac where these motorcycles will be spending most of their time. And for this, you will appreciate the fully adjustable suspension front and back that will help you fine-tune the ride experience to your liking. The rebellion nature of the FTR continues, as it is driven by a chain and not a belt. It has a trellis frame and has upside-down front forks, that too in golden no less. And look at that styling. It is not over the top but minimal, especially that short tail section, which to be honest is one of the prettiest tail sections on any motorcycle in the world right now. But the beauty lies in the attention to detail, like a typical Indian motorcycle. The build quality, the paint finish, everything about it screams high-end. Last but not least, it has a ton of features too, prime amongst which is the 4.3-inch LCD touchscreen infotainment system, which can be used even with the gloves on. It supports Bluetooth connectivity, has an ambient light sensor, and offers a choice of 2 console designs, and can be operated by touch, the buttons next to it, and even through the handlebar controls. However, the console is placed too low for my liking, and I found myself having to look down all the time in order to use it. And given that you have to cycle through riding modes by navigating through the menu, well, it sounds fancy, for sure, but it is not as effective as having a simple dedicated button to change riding modes. Speaking of which, there are 3: Rain, Sport and Standard, with an extra track setup thrown into the mixture that shuts down the traction control and ABS, turning the FTR into a proper hooligan. It's not all perfect though, as the engine does heat up when you are stuck in traffic, and the seat height could be a bit intimidating for those who are not used to such a seat height. So it's something that you need to keep in mind. But overall, the Indian FTR 1200S really manages to stand its ground and separate itself from the crowd. It has the looks as well as the riding experience that sets it apart. Think of it as a street naked infused with scrambler DNA and the refinement of a cruiser motorcycle from a manufacturer that is almost synonymous to that word. And you will get the Indian FTR 1200. My only concern is getting your hands on a spare set of those specifically made Dunlop tires once they are through.
So to sum up my thoughts about the Indian FTR 1200, if you want one motorcycle that does everything just enough well to be your everyday motorcycle, then the Indian FTR 1200 is the one for you.